Hello, this is Josh Patel back again with another biology video. Today we're going to be doing the last chapter in biology depending on how your teacher wanted you to do the lessons, which is chapter 34, and we're going to learn about reproduction and development. So this is the last chapter. So 34.1 is reproductive anatomy. So key concept is female and male reproductive organs fully develop during puberty. The female reproductive system produces ova. There are two main functions of the female reproductive system: to produce ova, or egg cells, and provide a place where the zygote develops. So here is the anatomy of the female parts, and if your teacher requires you to learn it, you should study this right here. And then estrogen has three main functions: develops female sexual characteristics, and develops eggs. It prepares uterus for pregnancy. So the male reproductive system produces sperm. There are two main functions of the male reproductive system. So one function is to produce sperm, and the other is to get the sperm into the female reproductive system. And if your teacher requires you to learn the male parts, here it is. I am not going to go over them. So testosterone has two main functions: developing male sexual characteristics and producing sperm. So 34.2 is reproductive process. Human reproductive processes develop on cycles of hormones. Eggs mature and are released according to hormone cycles. So we have the follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, and luteinizing hormone, which is LH, and these regulate egg production. Meiosis produces eggs and polar bodies. So meiosis is the sexual reproduction. So it produces two cells with half the DNA, so they have 23 chromosomes. And meiosis is complete at fertilization. So FSH and LH and estrogen stimulate the release of eggs. So follicle ruptures at ovulation. An egg travels into the fallopian tube, so ruptured follicles become corpus luteum. So the eggs are released from the ovaries into the fallopian tube, and so they travel, and then they eventually, if they don't get fertilized, they burst and break, causing a period in a female. And this happens once a month, and it releases one or more eggs. So eggs mature and are released according to the hormone cycles. The menstrual cycle has three phases: flow phase, which is where the endostream shreds. There's the follicular phase, where ovulation occurs, and the luteal phase, which corpus luteum forms. So the menstrual cycle stops at menopause. Cycle continues until a woman's mid-40s or 50s. So menopause is when that occurs. So menopause is the end of the menstrual cycle. And the menstrual cycle is when the egg comes and forms and just basically periods. So declines in hormone levels, making cycles irregular. Eventually cycle stops altogether. Sperm production in the testicles is controlled by hormones. Testosterone, FSH, and LH stimulate sperm production. One sex cell divides into 4 sperm. Each sperm has 23 chromosomes. So as we know, in meiosis it splits twice, so we get 4 cells at the end. Sperm cells fully mature in the epididymis, and the head contains archansome. So the mid-piece contains ATP, and this you don't need to know, and the tail allows mobility. You do not need to know the diagram of the sperm. So fertilization occurs when a sperm cell joins an egg cell. And one thing to note here is that males produce sperm throughout their life, while females are already born with all their eggs. So females, when they're alive, don't actually do meiosis, but males do. So sperm penetrates an egg cell. So membrane keeps out other sperm. So when the egg is in the fallopian tube, the sperm comes to fertilize it, and all the sperm kind of like race towards it, and only one, just one out of the thousands of millions of sperm get in. So only the strongest one is allowed in. And once that one's in, no other ones can enter it. Basically gets this hardened shell around it and it shuts down kind of. So the membrane keeps out other sperm. Nucleus of sperm joins with the egg, and so this is fertilization. And once the fertilization happens, it becomes a zygote. So multiple zygotes can result from fertilization. Identical twins from the same egg can happen. Fraternal twins come from two separate eggs. So if there's two eggs, like I said, it can produce one or more. If there's two eggs, two sperm will be the lucky winner. So one will get one and the other sperm will get the other cell. And so those would be fraternal twins because there's two different eggs. But identical twins come from the same egg. So something happens and this egg splits into two uncontrollably, or it's not natural. So infertility makes reproduction difficult or impossible. Sexual transmitted diseases affect fertility and overall health. Sexually transmitted diseases, or STDs, are passed from one person to another during sexual contact. Bacterial STDs include chlamydia, syphilis, and gonorrhea. So viral STDs include hepatitis B, genital herpes, and human papillomavirus, and HIVs. So bacterial STDs can be treated, in many cases cured with antibiotics. Viral STDs can be treated, but there is no cure for these diseases because it's a virus. STDs attack reproductive organs, can cause infertility, and untreated, some can be fatal. STDs can be avoided by abstinence or by using a condom. So 34.3 is fetal development. Development progress in stages from zygote to fetus. So the fertilized egg implants into the uterus is called and is nourished by the placenta and umbilical cord. So the placenta is basically this surrounding coat in the uterus, which basically gives the baby nutrients, and the umbilical cord does basically the same thing. They provide food and nutrients to the baby. So the zygote becomes a blastocyst and implants in the uterus. So, okay, we have the egg, and then it becomes fertilized, it becomes a zygote. The zygote splits a couple times, so like you start out with one cell, and then it goes from 1 to 2, and then 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16. So they like doubles every time until you get a blastocyst. And this implants in the uterus. So here we have the blastocyst forming, and it implants itself in the uterus into the uterine wall, and that's where it grows. So the ectoderm develops into skin and nervous system. So the blastocyst has 3 layers at this point, and these 3 layers develop into different things. So one layer is the ectoderm, and this develops into skin and nervous system. Then we have the mesoderm, which develops into internal tissue and organs. So if you think like the ectoderm, which would be like the skin, as we learned, the epidermis. So ecto, epi, kind of same. And then the mesoderm, if you know the layers of the earth, mesoderm is kind of on the inside, so it's internal tissue and organs. And then the endoderm develops into digestive organs and their lining. So the endoderm is basically the inside digestive system. So the blastocyst becomes an embryo. Embryonic membrane protects and nourishing the embryo. So amniotic sac cushions the embryo, so it's basically another thing that helps it grow, like the placenta. The placenta connects the mother and the embryo, and the umbilical cord connects the embryo to the placenta. So here we have the baby, and the placenta is kind of this sac that surrounds the baby and provides nourishment. And so the umbilical cord goes straight to the baby and connects to the sac, the placenta. And this is all in the uterus. So a zygote develops into a fully formed fetus in about 38 weeks. Human pregnancies are divided into trimesters. So there's three of them. The first trimester, and this is stuff you have to know. So the first trimester, body plan, and early development. So this is everything that happens. So this is probably usually weeks 1 through 12. Heart, brain, intestines, pancreas, kidneys, and livers are forming. So initial organs form. Heartbeat can be detected after 5 weeks. Arms and legs begin to develop. And then lenses of the eyes appear. Eyelids will later fuse shut to allow iris to develop. Individual fingers and toes begin to form. Hair, fingernails, and toenails develop. Cerebral hemispheres begin to form in the brain. Early structures of bronchi begin to develop, and internal sex organs show sex of the fetus. So, second trimester, the fetus is more active and develops. And one thing to note here is that most embryos of all animals look about the same, so it's another way to help us conclude evolution. So, second trimester is weeks 13 to 27. Most joints and bones have started to form. Skin is protected by fine hair and waxy substance. First movements are felt by mother. Wake and sleep cycles are more regular. Brain begins a stage of rapid growth. Eyes open and blink. Eyebrows and eyelashes have formed. The fetus breathes in this fluid, which is amniotic fluid, and its lungs are strengthened. Fetus swallows amniotic fluid and makes urine. So, third trimester, all organs fully formed. Fetus responds more strongly to light and sound outside the uterus. Fetus has periods of determining eyes and are open when awake and closed when asleep. So, fine body hair thins and scalp hair grows in. Bones are growing and hardening. Synapses between neurons form in huge numbers. Lungs complete development, and fetus turns to head down position. And then after about 38 weeks, fetus is ready to be born. The mother, so it starts a zygote from the fertilized egg, becomes a blastocyst, implants itself in the uterus, and from there it starts to grow into a baby with the 3 layers. And then the 3 layers eventually form a fetus, and the fetus is eventually born into a baby. So the mother affects the fetus, then pregnancy affects the mother. So the fetus depends on the mother for all its nutrition. The mother's diet must support fetal health, and mother must avoid toxic chemicals like alcohol and drugs and smoking. So for a healthy baby, the mother has to be healthy. The mother's health is affected by pregnancy in a number of ways. Increase in calories and body weight, pregnancy hormones affecting homeostasis, regular medical checkups are needed. So 34.4, birth and development. Physical development continues through adolescence and declines with age. Birth occurs in 3 stages. Stage 1 of birth is the dilation of the cervix. So contraction pushes cervix open. If cervix dilates too little, C-section needs to be done. So if it's not big enough for the baby to come out from. So stage 2 is the emergence of the baby. Baby usually born head first. So oxytocin simulates milk production. So baby is pushed through the cervix head first. So stage 3 is the expulsion of the placenta. Placenta detaches from the uterine wall. Contraction helps control bleeding. So the placenta also comes out. Human growth and aging also occurs in stages. Genetics, hormones, lifestyles, environment affecting all stages. During infancy, growth is rapid. During childhood, motor and language skills develop. So babies grow very, very fast. Genetic, hormones, lifestyles, environmental affects all stages. During puberty, sexual maturity begins. During adolescence, growth is rapid and the brain is rewired. Adulthood marks the peak of skills and independence. So, aging is also affected by genetics, hormones, lifestyles, and environment. So, depending on where you live, you're probably going to develop different things. Effective aging can be reduced with good diet, exercise, and continued learning. So, that's the end of the biology course, chapter 34, which was reproduction and development. And so, these videos are very good for studying on the final exam. Make sure you watch them all again if you're doing some last minute studying, and hope you had a good time with me, and I hope you learned a lot.